Thank you, Sid, for joining us on the Digital Inception podcast. We're a podcast that aims to build awareness around emerging technologies in sales and marketing tech for B2B buyers who are looking for innovative solutions that they might otherwise spend a lot of time researching, trying to find. If you could please, we can start with an introduction of yourself and your company. I'd love to learn a bit more.
Sure. Allison, thanks for having me. My name is Sid Chaudhry. I'm the founder and CEO of Intempt Technologies. We are a growth OS, so we help digital businesses, SaaS companies, e-commerce companies, mobile apps grow their digital properties by engaging their customers and converting them.
Perfect. And in terms of high-level category of type of software, how would you describe it, and who would some of your competitors be, for example?
Yes, that's a great question. So we have spent about 7 years of research and development into building a all-in-one growth platform that we're calling the Growth OS. So our base category is a customer data platform. So product and growth teams, sales teams, and lifecycle marketing teams, we unify their work using a customer data platform. So that's our base category. And the tools that we have built on top are a customer journeys tool. So this would typically be like a customer IO, a full-blown product and web analytics tool. So this would typically be, you'd buy like a mix panel, and a experimentation and personalization tool. So for that, for experimentation, you would typically buy a visual website optimizer. For personalization, and if you were doing a pure play, you would typically go with like an Optimizely or maybe a dynamic yield. And then finally, especially for the e-commerce space, we've built a full-blown recommendations tool. So you would typically go to a Nosto or a Clerk to incorporate product recommendations functionalities. When we say we're an all-in-one growth OS, we really mean it. We are pretty full stack for product and growth teams, cycle marketing teams, and in 2025 we will be making a further investment to sales teams trying to do outreach based on product usage data and other signals.
Okay, that sounds great. Tell me a bit about what inspired you to start the company.
So I get this question from time to time. So I think I think the inspiration sort of changed over time. So if I was to roll back the clock like 5 or 7 years ago, I was working for Adobe Marketing Cloud and then for Intel, their new devices group. And so I was working at, in these companies building analytics and web products for marketers. Coming out of that, you tend to kind of do what you know. So, and I was a first-time founder at the time, so I came out and tried to build a web personalization tool for SMBs. So, the initial inspiration was not so much to change the world, but then the inspiration was to, be able to build a product that, small businesses would find appealing. Because at the time, Adobe was catering primarily to large enterprises with the Marketing Cloud, and I think that to a large extent they still are. So I think the initial inspiration was just, let's just get out there and build product and have fun doing it. So sort of the ambition or the inspiration was just that. It wasn't to build a big business and build a big product suite. So I think fast forward 7 years later, and many pivots and micro pivots, so to speak, later. Desire and ambition as an entrepreneur is to make a certain type of impact. And the impact that I'd like to make is that fundamentally growing a digital business, product-led business, whether you're an e-commerce company, a SaaS company, or a mobile app, that fundamentally this go-to-market endeavor is today split across growth teams that work very closely with product doing experimentation, lifecycle marketing teams like typically living in sort of email and SMS systems, and then finally the sales team, right? In a lot of product-led growth or product-led SaaS companies, the sales teams doing outreach and booking meetings and building pipeline, that's the way they're growing. So, when I look back now 7 years later, building a growth OS, I think the ambition and the motivation is that we've got these three teams that still operate both in terms of the customer data and in terms of the tools that they use. And so the idea and the inspiration is to build a go-to-market system, one go-to-market system or one growth OS that fundamentally unifies the work of these three types of teams and three types of practices really that have just been disparate practices. So the experimentation practice, the lifecycle marketing practice, and the sales outreach practice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I've experienced this myself too in some companies when marketing and product tries to work together. There's a lot of different experimentation goals that come out of that. So, like what are some ideas of things we can change in the product that we can test for growth purposes? What's going to drive more engagement, more customers at the end of the day. Even when a company wants to do that, it's sometimes just still very difficult to do it.
Yeah.
Coordinating both teams, those teams work typically very differently from one another. Being able to really make that successful, in my personal experience at least, it hasn't been easy. And in many companies, it has kind of, that growth mindset has been there, but the execution of it hasn't been successful.
Yeah.
So diving a little bit more into that, what are some of the unique features or capabilities in your technology that you think really lends well to being able to deliver on like this growth marketing experimental strategy?
Yeah. So, I think really what we've found with our customers is that they're able to find, if you look at experimentation culture today, so running A/B tests today, or if you look at lifecycle marketing today, so if you take a Klaviyo and you're running, personalized email campaigns or even recommendations in email, or if you look at sales teams doing outreach and booking calendar meetings and then losing the customer to a no-show and then finding them back on the website and personalizing the website to that customer, and back to email marketing and so on to rebook the meeting. I think if you think through these workflows, the features that are prevalent in these tools are plentiful, frankly.
Right.
There is definitely some next generation work being done in experimentation platforms today, and email platforms and web personalization platforms. But generally speaking, if you look at the micro features, there's very little remarkable work being done in that space. But I would say that like the biggest difference that the Growth OS has made, has been unifying the data set around which these teams operate. So, and it actually lends itself to a certain smoothness in the product and workflows that has never been possible before for the average SMB that is not buying a marketing suite or a marketing cloud today. So,
Right.
for example, you're able to, in one click, you're able to deduplicate the user or identify the user across your Shopify activity. But if you're in e-commerce, let's just take an example.
Yeah.
Across your Shopify activity, your web activity, in other words, your website activity, and your email activity. You're able to look at the user consistently throughout this experience. So whether you're running an A/B test on a website, whether you're running a recommendations widget on web or email, whether you're running a email and SMS journey, and then looking at product analytics and web analytics in the front or the back of this process. You're able to see the user deduplicated across this activity. You're able to see consistent metrics and consistent optimization across these activities. And you're not able to achieve this level of smoothness by definition if you're using 3 or 4 different products to achieve these types of cross-channel campaigns. Now, this may not sound sexy, but it lends to correct and effective measurement when it comes to analytics. It lends to correct and effective segmentation and targeting when data is collected across channels and then used back in segmentation and targeting of audiences. And it simply leads to better and more targeted email, SMS, and web personalization. So when you put these things together, and I haven't even gotten to then running AI models, both traditional AI as well as LLMs here on top
Mhm.
of this clean data set.
Right.
Before you even get a lot, because a lot of SMBs don't have the traffic to do machine learning type modeling. But even before you get to that type of clean data sets being fed to AI,
Mhm.
this type of smooth unified product is across these categories is an industry first for SMBs that are spending
Mhm.
5 to 10,000 a month on marketing tools, not 50 to 100,000 on marketing.
Right, right. Yeah, well, I mean, you say it doesn't sound sexy, but I do think like it solves a very real problem, right? I mean, the data problem in itself when it comes to like marketing analytics or user analytics, in an app or in a platform. And it's true, like if you don't have this cohesive data across the various different platforms that someone can take action on, it's very difficult to create and implement effective experiments that really are designed to be personalized to increase those KPIs that a company might be wanting to increase, whether it's conversion rates on specific pages or a specific area of the app, etc. I think that it is necessary, and I see that this challenge all the time. And there are tools, even BI tools, kind of I think attempt at maybe solving some of these and some different use cases, maybe or different contexts. But there are other tools that kind of aim to solve this challenge because I have not actually myself heard of a tool that really brings in all the user data across all these different platforms into one place in a very accurate, clean way that makes it usable data, right? The data exists. It's just not something that companies can typically historically can use and leverage to their advantage. So yeah, you say it's not sexy, but I actually, as a marketer myself of many years, I'm like, yes, this is great. I can definitely see how companies could leverage something like this.
Yeah, I'll tell you a quick customer story. We have a SaaS app. They're in the generative video space, and they've got a web app. They've got an iOS app. They've got an Android app, and they've got your classic Stripe that collects their subscription data, including cross sells and upsells. So pretty straightforward setup, right? You've got a web app in React, you've got iOS and Android app, both native, and then you've got Stripe, doing all of your subscriptions. I mean, how much simpler can it get?
Right.
But I challenge you to actually go in and take the user across and by the way, the users actually use mobile apps, a mobile app and the web app in conjunction. Okay,
Right.
so
Yep.
I challenge you to track a user all the way from a lead when they are a lead on a website to when they actually sign up for the web product. Then when they go and log in on the iOS app, and then in the back track them when they actually subscribe and then upsell
Mhm.
to be able to segment a user against all of this data smoothly for analytics purposes, for targeting purposes,
Mhm.
and for customer journeying purposes, so sending email and SMS messages. By the way, they
Mhm.
collect the phone number on the mobile apps and the email on the web app. So and we managed to merge those identities. When you see smooth, effective marketing happening just in the simple scenario,
Mhm.
it cannot happen with four different data platforms and four different apps just because each SaaS tool wants to come in with their own CDP, right? So I think I'm glad you don't find this unsexy. I certainly don't find this unsexy at all. It just solves a very essential practical problem in the space for SMBs that can afford, or even want whole hog marketing suites.
Mhm.
Are very powerful beasts, but they require, they have a conceptual hurdle, so they have a learning curve that's pretty high. They have at least 3 to 5 people that you need to operate
Mhm.
these suites, and they got a pretty big learning curve. And I've used them, and there's quite a bit of data discrepancy still in these suites. I think customers are happy when we get shit done, and that's what we want to be known for.
Yeah. So tell me, what are some of your best like customer success stories? How they've applied the technology to really achieve some big milestones.
Yeah, yeah. So I just mentioned one. So we have a generative video SaaS company that is solving the problem of being able to run analytics, run personalization, and customer journey all on one platform with us. We've got a toy company, so that's kind of a fun one. We've got a toy company that and the marketer there. Um, he loves customer reviews. So they use our technology. They've got I think it's I need to go back and look. But every week they do segmentation to find the customers that I forget what criteria they use, but they do segmentation to find the customers that they feel have bought toys that are going to be good reviewers. They kind of do some segmentation to figure that out. I don't know what formula
Yeah.
they use there, and then they these weekly review emails encouraging these customers to give reviews. No offers, no incentives. By the way, this is
Right.
just using targeting to figure out who's most likely to respond favorably to a review.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sort of that's their weekly case. They also use us for analytics, which is kind of their standard dashboarding. They also use us for A/B testing. They're going to roll out recommendations with us, I think, in next quarter or this coming quarter in Q2. So yeah, we typically find, typically what happens is people don't, small SMBs, I'm talking, less than 200 employees, they don't come at us with wanting to do everything at once. So they initially deployed analytics. Then I believe they deployed the customer journey software with focusing on developing their Google reviews, I think. And now they'll roll out recommendations both on the website and I believe, after on email. So,
Yeah.
so that's kind of
Yeah.
how it goes, step by
I
step.
really like the reviews use case. I think that that's a really good one. I think that I mean it's always reviews is one of those things that it's so impactful when it comes to the sales process for a buyer. Yet it's one of those really time consuming, heavy lifting type of initiatives that always seems to get deprioritized for companies, because it takes so much time and effort. And also there's no real good way to do it. Somebody's got to design like the process for how to request those reviews. And then again, like what data do you use to determine who you send those requests to? So I really like that as a use case actually. And then for recommendations, to clarify, is that using personalized data to then be able to recommend like upsells or cross sells to existing customers?
Yeah. So it's pretty classic. It's pretty classic Rex. Well, I should clarify that. So there's a few different algos that we have in our system. So we've got the pretty classic Rex, which is people who bought this, bought that, people who viewed this, viewed that. You may also like. So we've got 10, 12 algorithms that are pretty classic recommendations algorithms. We ingest the Shopify catalog. By the way, we're one click. You just go on Shopify, you install the Shopify SDK, we ingest your catalog. Well, I mean, it's one click to install our Shopify integration, and then you ingest your catalog, you just create your feeds, and with no code, you're able to deploy recommendations fully to your websites. Again, we're very much a no code platform.
Mhm.
But this is the classic recommendations algorithms. But we also have, for e-commerce specifically, two very interesting algorithms that typically not considered recommendations algorithms, but they are. I'll just tell you what they are. One is recency, frequency, monetary. So we're able to deploy. We call this an agent really now because it seems to be more and more relatable from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
But it's a recency frequency monetary algorithm where we take your customer base and we classify you
Mhm.
into someone that is highly engaged and highly so high recency, high frequency, and high monetary. So that's kind of one edge of the spectrum. And then all the way to the other edge, which is where you're likely to never hear from that customer again. So low recency, low frequency, and low
Right.
monetary. And then there's several shades of RFM between highly engaged and highly disengaged. So we have a out of the box RFM algorithm. You just go in and click and choose the events, the behavior events that you're interested in, that for recency, frequency, and monetary. And we automatically give you segmentation that you can then use on your web personalization or on email SMS sending. So that's another type of algorithm. And then finally, we've got a recommendation agent that is not traditional recommendations. We call it next best action. So here you can just again take your customer base. You can choose between two or three actions. Typically, they could be marketing offers, but they don't always have to be offers. They could just be two or three actions that you believe would progress a customer through your funnel, right? So it could be
Mhm.
opening them from the home page. They could be going to the category page if you're e-commerce, or from the category page to the product page. If you're a SaaS company, this could be someone checking out your products. downloading your any lead magnet if you're a SaaS company. So any kinds of actions that indicate buying intent or purchase intent or furthering them down the funnel, you could put them into this next best action agent, and it'll choose for the right for the customer that's currently on your website. It'll choose the right the next best action that's most likely to get them to take action on the conversion goal or the conversion metric that you specify. So we've got quite a few different types of agents or algorithms that a marketer can use depending on exactly what they're trying to do.
Yeah, no, that's that last one that you described. I actually know of a few companies who have had really big success with leveraging data that way. So looking at what are the most common actions that lead to conversion, and then dynamically changing the customer journey for users who have not yet taken those actions to help guide them into those actions to make it more likely that they'll convert. So yeah, I love that. I think for any company that's looking to implement like an experimental growth strategy, I think that that's a really, really good one, especially of course, like different use cases, but more like product, I would say consumer goods focused companies. I think I think what was the company actually that I heard of? Maybe it was Dropbox. It was like if somebody creates a folder or something like that, that was like one of the actions that led to, or like if they added stuff, then that would lead to like a purchase or something. Cause there's like a free plan. So it's like you want to get people from like free plan to purchase. But yeah, I think that's really, really valuable.
Yeah,
I'm going to,
Dropbox had some really really good ones over the years. I'll tell you another quick customer story for us for next best action. If you'd like, I could tell
yeah,
you
yeah,
I
I'd
tell
love
you a
to
quick
hear.
one. So we've got a customer that operated a mobile app in the real estate space, and the app allowed the agent, so the person selling the house, to take photos of all of or some or all of the rooms in the house, and then it would stitch these photos together into a collage, and allow them to send it to the buyer or post it on behalf of the seller, right? Depending on who they were representing. So one of the issues that this app had was onboarding, right? So it's a considerable effort for the agent to be able to download the app and then figure out how to use the camera, understand the image stabilization, go into the rooms, take the photos at the right angles, have proper lighting. So it takes, it sounds easy, but it takes a little bit of training for the agent to kind of like get used to the app and like it. So one of the issues they had was a lot of drop off on agents being able to successfully create and submit their first project for processing. So because you had to take all the photos, you had to create the project, then you had to submit it for processing. And if you didn't do it, if you didn't have your aha moment or your activation
Yeah.
moment, you're not going to come back to the app. So they had a lot of free installs that would go nowhere, right? So, and it turns out that when you move through the app, you have to not just take your photos, you need to select your music, right? There was
Yeah.
music selection in the app, and then I forget, there was one other. I think there was template selection first. You had to select it from the different types of templates that you want to use for your collage. Then you had to select the music. Then you have to upload your photos. So there was a few steps and a few different actions that needed to happen, and you could do them out of order, but you had to complete these actions to be able to successfully submit that project. So one of the things that we helped them with, and then their onboarding got smoother. One of the things that we helped them with was next best action. We were able to predict what action does the agent need to do next when they either when they open the app, or when they are not finishing the project that they created for their home, um, in order to get them in a habit formation. So it's another quick example of the kinds of marketing initiatives. Now, again, it's very interesting, right? When it comes to onboarding, whose problem is it? Like, is it marketing's problem? Is this product's problem? Or is this kind of, so onboarding is always actually customer success. Like, it's a customer success's problem, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a funny thing, but like, so because marketing is doing launches, and most certainly, if they're launching this type of feature, they should be responsible to kind of make sure that it launches well, and then products kind of building it, and then customer success. Well, the customer's getting kind of stuck, right? So maybe customer success, right? So it's very interesting. Like with these types of onboarding problems in SaaS, like what we've noticed is it doesn't really matter. Like your tool should not kind of sort of block you, right? If we're trying to solve a problem, and in SMBs, like a founder or some kind of VP of revenue just doesn't care, right? Whose problem it is, right? You should be able to have product teams or marketing teams or sales teams just go in and be able to get shit done, as I say.
Yeah.
So onboarding is a very interesting one. I think it sort of crisscrosses these teams and is a use case where I think like I speak this unification of growth teams and sales teams and marketing teams really has to come to life during this onboarding or activation period for a SaaS company.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I feel like that's a very real life problem that companies go through. And to your point, it's like, whose problem is it? Who takes like full ownership of it? And the reality is that all those departments are coming at it from like a different angle, a different perspective. So we're all trying
Yeah.
to, they're all trying to solve their own problems, right? Product wants less product friction. They want people moving through efficiently and smoothly, and they want the experience to be good. Marketing just wants conversions. How do we get people like paying? And customer success, I mean, they want like the after sale piece as well to be, keep people, like retain people, right? So like they're all looking at it from different angles and perspectives. So there's value there for everyone. And to combine the benefits of all those different angles, that's what makes a great product, right?
Yeah, it's like guys, even if you've got the growth team that wants to run an A/B test, or you've got the marketing team that wants to do like a life cycle marketing campaign to get you to habit form. All of you should be looking at the very same set of user metrics here, right?
Exactly.
And I think then smoothly targeting, whether it's experimentation or whether it's life cycle marketing, you should be smoothly targeting based off of those metrics, and that customer data set should be used in targeting, right? Then you've got the most accurate segment that has data from Stripe, like I said, for payments, and that has data from web activity, and that has data from email or SMS delivery, right? Built in. So yeah, I mean, I've probably belabored this point at this, so we can move on. But these are the types of problems that solving them is very gratifying.
Mhm. Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's great. I mean, like I said, I've come across these challenges myself many times. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. So in terms of emerging trends, what do you see, for the future of marketing and sales tech right now?
Yeah, so look, I think all of the industry has sort of operated on this premise of customer data being in these operating off of these traditional databases, right? And MarTech, sales tech, a customer success tech even. I think we've all sort of operated off of this customer 360 and then unifying data as sort of fundamental premise, and that's kind of been all the way to 2022, call it. And I think now the big question I think on everyone's mind is, including myself and Intempt Technologies, is when you've got the customer 360 data set and that meets the large language model, fundamental knowledge in the large language model, well, if you look at that intersection of the CDP and the LLM, well, what does that mean for the industry going forward? I think that answering that question, I think, is paramount on the minds of a lot of product people today. And so I think that's a very interesting emerging or already emerged trend that's gonna carry forward, I think, over the next 3 to 5 years. So I can expand upon that if you like, but that I think that fundamental technology kind of introduction, I think, is opens up a lot for the industry.
Okay, well, so follow-up question to that. Do you envision AI as an opportunity or a threat? And
Oh,
why?
I think I mean, AI is a massive opportunity. I don't think I don't think it's a threat at all. In which way would you mean a threat?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm thinking, I mean, I suppose like if you look at competitors, so it could be a threat that way. Like a lot of sales and marketing technologies now are implementing some kind of AI component. Like most of the ones I've seen actually have some AI that makes something a
Yeah.
little easier or even just summarizes
Yeah.
something. So I suppose from a competitive standpoint, a lot of other businesses also view it as an opportunity. So it's going to become more competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I do think that a lot of marketing and sales activity is going to be far more efficient with the introduction of the LLM. So, 100%, like some of us might view it as a threat, but I think, perhaps no one will feel the threat as much as perhaps the software writers themselves today feel, probably threatened because you've got LLMs pumping out software left, right, and center.
Mhm.
So we've clearly seen that with Cursor and Windsurf and other IDEs just absolutely blasting out software, and it's just the first couple of years of this, so
Right.
of LLM. So I think no doubt, like when it comes to certain types of marketing activity, like content writing
Mhm.
or website building, I think, or even dashboard building, right? I mean, I think definitely you're going to see a lot of changes. But frankly, I think marketers, sellers, they've been so burdened by software that I think they're going to be welcome, more or less, they're just going to welcome this change because they've just got, they're marketers and a lot of sellers, especially marketers, they're very creative people, right? They're fundamentally creative people. They come from literature, they come from, social sciences, they understand psychology, human psychology. They're very creative human beings. And for years, I feel marketers have been held back by these tools that don't allow them to unleash their creativity. So I think, when it comes to image models or video models or text models, I think this is, yes, a lot of the workflows are going to get disrupted, but I think overall this is fantastic for the industry. I mean, I can tell you that in my marketing team, the amount of how much more we can express ourselves without having to explain things to just to a lot of people, right? I think is insane, right? So
Mhm.
I think it's definitely more exciting and more of an opportunity than it is a threat. But I do think that SaaS companies, and we're no different, they're gonna have to be pretty nimble in their products and their roadmap. Like they too stuck in the marketing workflows of the past or the sales workflows of the past. They have to kind of understand the large language model. They have to bring it in, like I was saying, like what is the intersection of the customer data platform and how it likes to think, and the large language model and how it likes to think. What is the intersection of those? When you do account research today, if you're a SaaS seller, if you're doing account research, I do that, right? You do that, I'm sure. You're trying to research an account or a contact. Well, are you going to do it the CRM way? Are you going to do it the LLM way? Or are you going to, how are you going to operate, right? I think that just the CRMs and the CDPs of the world have to kind of think, I think, embrace this as an opportunity and shift workflows. But overall, I see it as the most exciting time to be the SaaS technologist again. I don't know if I think I speak for a lot of founders where in the last 10 years we were like, good God, we have reached like this peak of optimization of MarTech and sales tech SaaS. It was honestly like the iPhone, like in its like 10th generation now, and you're just like, listen. I mean, if you were like kind of, innovating in the phone space right now, you'd be like scratching your head. I mean, I think we were getting there kind of a MarTech and sales tech. And now, like I was saying, those features were like almost, you couldn't think of a feature, right? So,
Yeah.
but now I think with LLMs, like it's just suddenly it's like this breath of fresh air for most of us founders. And most of us are like, oh God, like we can play again. Like we can like innovate again, right? So I don't know. Like I'm pumped again. I'm just like, wow, like, and I'm like founder and a product guy for a long time. And like, it's like, I'm back like Willy Wonka chocolate factory. Like,
Yeah.
like I think it's like, feels like this again. So I don't think it's a threat at all. I think it's just super fun
Yeah.
again.
No, I actually, yeah, no, I mean, I can definitely relate to that too. Like, I mean, it can be used in so many different ways and in marketing, like, and I use it on a daily basis in marketing as well. And you're right. It's kind of like an outlet for creativity, which is an interesting way to look at it because I think it's like the typical angle we hear is, it's a productivity tool, right? And like it is certainly, but it's also a tool that allows you to be more creative. And you start with one idea and you can expand that to 10 different ideas or 100 different ideas. So that's kind of how I've personally been using it is like, okay, I've got this one idea. I want more, I want to build around this idea more, right? And Even just plugging that into, I use Perplexity as a AI tool. You can kind of bounce around the different LLMs, and yeah, super fascinating. So no, I'm with you on that. I think it's like the creative aspect of it is really exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's super fun.
yeah,
I
yeah,
I mean I think my marketing team, myself, I think we're having a grand old time. And I talk to many marketers
yeah,
as you do, and I think they're having a blast with, it's like I have this newsletter I recently started on this week in AI, I think, or GTM AI Insider is what I called it, and it's basically this week in AI, and I just go down and I just list like everything cool that I found in 1 week in AI, like 20 links to people, like people on LinkedIn and Twitter, like posting like the most awesome stuff they found. Just all the marketers I follow, basically.
right.
And it's just like whiplash. Like you're just like, oh my God,
Yeah,
I mean, when did we live in a time where like this much was happening in like 1 week? And
yeah,
since I've done three editions of this newsletter now, and
mhm,
I'm just like, and when you write a newsletter like this, you actually really tangibly see how dynamic and this is just GTM, by the way. It's not even AI broadly. This is just go to market tech, like
yeah,
how broadly it's been just moving, like so, or how dynamically it's moving, and it's just, it's just super fun.
yeah, yeah. No, it's almost like overwhelming, right? It's like so much to focus on.
Like
Yeah,
sometimes I'm just like I get to like 20 links, like I gather these over a week, and I get to like 20 links, and by the time I get to 20 links, I'm just like, all right, I'm just gonna stop. I could just go on and on and on over here. Like I just stop. Like I'm just like, okay. And then like I look at some links and I'm like, oh God, I want to include that. Like, and because
yeah,
like, how can I not include, like, Nvidia just came out with like this really emotive like robot. I don't know if you watched this really cute
yeah,
robot between, like, I think Disney and Nvidia and I think Google. They
yeah,
collaborated on building this like really cute emotive robot. Now it's just like, oh God, like how can I not include this? And it's just like, you know what, like there's no end to this. So it's just,
yeah, yeah. The amount of cool stuff in the world today is like
yeah, it's like next
up
level.
here. Yeah, it's crazy. So I want to talk a little bit about like you as a CEO and your business and the company. What have you found to be like one or two of the biggest challenges you've faced in growing the business?
Yeah, yeah, I get this question, and I think every time I answer it, I feel that, maybe it just gets um, more raw. I think the biggest challenge as a founder um, is, you know that you're just, frankly, you start out as a founder, and you just think you're a lot better than you really are. I
Right.
don't know kind of how else to put it, but I come out of the gate thinking that, yeah, like, I'm gonna be like, you grow up like kind of as this tech, in tech in Silicon Valley, and you like look at Steve Jobs and these other guys, and you go like, oh my God, like, I know that's like, I'm gonna be a founder, I'm gonna be like a little Steve Jobs, like,
Right.
and you're so not, like, and it takes you a few years to like realize, oh my God, like how incredibly hard this is, how many skills you really need to kind of amass over a period of time. And you think first of all, you think anything you do will not be seen by anyone for probably 36 months, frankly.
Right.
Anything meaningful that you do. So first of all, the very first thing I think, like, as a challenge as a founder, as a creator of anything, is you have to be able to actually vision something 36 months out that's actually relevant, right? 36 months out. Okay. So, I mean, this was hard enough. Back in the day. But now, if you think about it with LLMs, I mean, you can imagine how hard this really is to build something that
Mm,
36 months later is still relevant. Right. So I think you start out like, with just this thing about, you have to be, just the skills that you need to amass is sort of the hardest thing. And being a CEO or a founder that builds, then you have to build with the vision, then you have to be right about it, then your product's got to be spot on, then you have to have, teams that really can very deeply build products that are spot on. And then after you figured out product, frankly, then you have to be good enough to figure out distribution, right?
Hmm.
So, it's this, and then when you look at distribution and you look at go to market, and since we're in the both in the go to market space, you can understand now if you speak to anybody about the formula for go to market, like there isn't one. Well,
Yeah.
welcome. Like, you've got SEO traffic like just plummeting. You've
Yeah.
got nobody knows how to surface themselves in LLMs.
Hmm.
You've got, hundreds of thousands of SaaS products and plenty of noise in the market. So I think like the hardest things is going back, like you have to amass these skills where you have to have enough product vision and enough product chops to be correct. And then you have
Hmm.
to have enough distribution chops to be able to cut through the noise and get in front of people that actually care about what you built, right? Because they've got those problems. So
Yeah.
I think just doing these fundamentals really, really, really well. I mean, I
Hmm.
certainly thoroughly underestimated. I underestimated, how talented I was and how talented, frankly, you need to be as a founder to be able to recruit, to be able to build, to be able to sell,
Yeah.
to be able to inspire,
You have to do
like
all of it.
all of it, right? And I think like I think that I would say is the hardest thing, is just sort of having that self introspection or self realization, to be able to develop these skills, because nobody, okay, I mean the elites, if you're Zuckerberg or Jobs or these,
Hmm.
Musk and all these guys, like, maybe they've got it, right? But even they, I think, work super, super hard at developing these skills. And there's only so far I think hiring and delegation really gets you. You can see now the Airbnb, yeah, the Airbnb CEO talking about founder mode, right? What they're really trying to say is that, hey, listen, like, it's easier to make mistakes and it's much more costly to make mistakes now, just because the industry is so competitive. So
Yeah.
you have to kind of, as a founder, you just have to amass these skills. And I think this,
Yeah.
underestimating this is probably my number one. If I was to go back and ask myself, what would I do differently? It's like, hey, know what you don't know and amass those skills
Hmm.
fast and
Right.
quick, because
Yeah.
you're going to find out later that it matters.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. I think, often it's people think like, oh, okay, well, you just delegate what you don't know to somebody who does know these things. But even that's not that simple, right? I think one of the key skills is actually probably hiring in that case, because recognizing talent and knowing that you're hiring the right person, because even hiring the wrong person in an area that you're not super knowledgeable about can be very costly, right? If you've got like the wrong executive and
Right.
an executive seat for a year and they weren't the right person, that's a
Right.
year lost, right?
Yeah, right.
So,
And I'll tell you that, like, it's not about like, and hiring is particularly tricky because it's not just about competence, frankly. You
mhm,
have to know what someone that's marketing or selling or building your specific product needs to be good at, right?
yeah,
That's what you have to really know. Well, how do you really know that if you haven't built and marketed and sold to a certain extent your own product yourself, right?
yeah,
So
exactly.
how are you going to know that? I mean, you could, maybe you are just that insightful, if you've got like these brilliant advisors that are going to, just tell you, said, hey, just do this, just do that. But like, more often than not, that's not going to happen. So I just feel like you have to know, even for hiring, you have to have a certain amount of skill to be able to understand that this person is the right person. And that also to me was, frankly, I've hired poorly in sales. I've hired poorly in marketing. I've done marketing and sales poorly myself.
Right.
And all of these hard learned and products, frankly, all of
Yeah.
and despite being a computer scientist, I'm a computer scientist from UC Berkeley, and I'll tell you that I built product wrong, right?
Right.
Just built it wrong. Just
Yeah.
assumptions, right? Just made assumptions because I thought I was smarter than the market or the customer, and you're wrong, right? Um, so I think these details really, I think, are everything now. Like, I really believe that they say devil's in the details, but you don't really know until you get the details wrong.
Yeah.
So I think,
Yeah. No, that's definitely true. I think there's something to be said about, like having those skills to a certain extent yourself to be able to then, hire in those skills into the company.
yeah,
Like knowing a bit about the things that you don't know, like making an effort to figure
yeah,
those things out, right?
yeah.
I'm conscious of time because I know how much time we booked. So, and I'll edit this little blurb out. I'm going to ask you one last question to
Sure.
wrap it up, and then I'll stop the recording. Okay. All right. So, lastly, where can listeners go if they want to learn more about your product and connect with you directly?
Yeah, absolutely. Intempt, we are Intempt Technologies. So intempt.com, INTEMPT.com is
Mhm.
where you can learn about the company and the products called Growth OS. You can certainly reach me on LinkedIn. I'm Sid Chaudhry on LinkedIn. And I read and answer. I read every one of my emails and I answer a lot of them. So just email me at SID at intempt.com, INTEMPT.com.
Mhm.
Yeah, well, we can connect.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It was a great discussion. I really enjoyed learning about the product and your take on the industry and AI. I think all really good, relevant topics today in sales and marketing. So, yeah, thank you again for joining.
Yeah, thank you, Allison. I wish you the best.
Thank you so much.